All right, guys, here we are. We're a day removed from huge news, right? If it has to do with the World Championship, it's huge news. If it has to do with a feature match, meaning co-main or main event, it's huge news. If it has to do with the heavyweight division, it's huge news. If it has to do with Madison Square Garden, it's huge news. Can we all agree? Okay, great. But there's two sides to every story. All right? So let's start with Sergei Pavlovich. Sergei Pavlovich has done everything right competitively, and he has earned the respect of the decision makers on the second floor of the Ultimate Fighting Championships located in West Las Vegas. Okay. So leading up to this fight, Sergei is the backup fighter, and it was awesome and it was compelling. And I went through, I did all my research, I got ready for you guys. I put everything together that Sergei has done from a public standpoint. Everything. It doesn't matter if it was print or video, if there was an interpreter. Oh my goodness, I got through it all. So Sergei, as it pertains to filling in against either Jon or Stipe, made an awesome, here's what he said. So then I go down the rabbit hole of his opponent, Tom Aspinall. And Tom comes out and he laid out for Ariel Helwani how this whole fight got together. Now, the first thing Tom has to do is to address his opponent who's been in this spot and knew this could happen, has been in preparation. And when Sergei comes to the media with a very compelling pace where he says, like, that's not something that Tom can just let go. So Tom lays this out for Ariel, and he's in England. It's 6 a.m. Now, Tom is married, and Tom is also a father. So the phone is ringing at 6, and that's a little earlier than the family was used to being up, and Tom sees this. And Tom adds that to the story because he says he looks, who's calling me now? He looks at the phone and can see the 702 area code, and he can see it says Las Vegas, Nevada. So he knows the brass, as he put it, that's Tom's word, from the UFC is calling him. And he shared with Ariel, amongst all the things Tom said, I thought this was so interesting, but he said he never, ever in his life, and he said this guy's been a main event, his last 2 events, both completely sold out in England. He says, I've never been called by the UFC. Never directly. I've never directly. And I know what that meant. I know where I was the first day that Dana called me. And by the way, thought my name was Chael Sonnen. But at any rate, I just know what Tom meant when he was kind of trying to tell that story. It was kind of powerful for me because I could relate to it. And it's an exciting moment in your career. Guess what Tom did when that phone was ringing at 6 a.m.? He looks down, though. He's got the phone. He looks down. He sees who it is. He's a little bit groggy. He didn't answer it. He didn't answer it. He said he had 4 more hours of sleep before he was going to go to training. He really needed to get that rest, so he lays back down. And he's telling Ariel, he says, I couldn't sleep. Got a million things going through my head. I can't sleep. What did they want? Why didn't I answer it? Grabs the phone, calls him back. Says they didn't even say hello or good morning or hi, Tom. They didn't even address or identify who they are. They picked up the phone and said, are you healthy? And Tom said, yes, I'm healthy. And they said, could you fight in 2 weeks? Tom said, yes, I could fight in 2 weeks. Nothing else, though. Okay, make sure you understand. This is verbatim. So it's not necessarily what he said. It's what he didn't say. He didn't say who. He didn't say where. He didn't say what's the money on it. He didn't say 3 rounds or 5. I'm telling you what he said, which was a direct answer to the question that he was asked, could you fight in 2 weeks? He said yes. Then Tom came with his first ever question, which still didn't have to do with how much, where, or who. So what's going on? That's all that he said. They responded to him without the offer. They responded to him and said, we got some real crazy stuff going on with the Madison Square Garden card. All we're calling you for right now is to find out, are you healthy and able to fight? Now that we've done that, our job is done. I'll call you within a day. Click. That's how the call went. I love that. It's peace of mind. I am a Tom fan, but had that call gone any other way than that, my fandom is going to take a knock. I very much am a believer in right now, in today, in living the life. I'm very much a believer in that. And I don't have a lot of company. I don't even have the support of a lot of fans who at one point in my life Had you backed out, chickened out, for any reason, found yourself out of a fight, you would have been met with resistance. At one point in my life, that was called the 90s. I have been surprised that I never would have predicted for you how quickly and easily the fans, you guys, will let somebody out of a fight. It's been a surprise to me. I don't judge you for it. I'm admitting my wrong prediction and calculation. Jon Jones is ranked number 1 in the world, not only in the heavyweight class, but within the pound-for-pound status. Now, if you were to do that vote and you were allowed to let fighters themselves vote, I mean, think of it. Think of it like this. The fighters themselves are allowed to vote, but we're going to do it by a show of hands. Jon, who would want to vote for himself, when they threw out Jon's name in a game of a show of hands, would not be able to raise his hand to cast the ballot for himself. You have a guy who can't even raise his hand. And you keep him as the champion, as number 1 in the division, and number 1 on your GOAT list. I don't agree with that. That is not a knock on Jon Jones, who I wish to get better. Very sincerely. I just share with you, when we start as a volunteer army with who first and foremost says that they should be, and then fill in the blank, the heavyweight champion, the guy considered this, the guy considered that, the guy that fills in over here, whoever it is, it starts with the volunteer army, which starts with raising your hand, and you currently have a guy who can't raise his hand. At any rate, I like that that was Tom's attitude. Many guys will say those things, and it will get my attention, but very few people are ever actually put in a position where they get called on it. Very few people. And you would be able to relate to this. In many different circumstances, you go, well, if a guy came in and did, here's what I would have done, or somebody else responds in a certain way. There's a robbery going on, and everybody stood around, they did nothing. You go, well, I would have stepped in and I would have done something. You might really believe that about yourself, but the chances that you'll ever be put in that position to truly find out, like the person you're attempting to judge, is beyond rare. I know people that, oh, if somebody did this to me, we'd be fighting right then. Somebody touched my child, right? I mean, we go through this whole thing, and then Cain Velasquez actually does what you all said you would do. He's going to stand up in front of 12 people that weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty, and I guarantee they're going to have forgot that they actually said that. He actually got put in the position and did what everybody else claimed that they would do. And I bring this to you because you don't actually know. And me as a fan, I'll get behind a guy that says a lot of the right things. But as a fan, I will get very nervous when he's actually put in that position because more times than not, he's going to fail. Most people are not that person they claim to be, that they really, truly believe. And they'll go their whole life all the way to the grave really, truly believing that because they never actually got tested. Tom got tested. He agreed to a fight without asking the money, without even knowing how many rounds it is. When you think Kamaru Usman showed bravery, and he did. You think Volkanovski showed bravery, and he did. Tom didn't even know who the opponent was or how long the match was going to be. Right? I mean, it's one thing to get asked to do something, but to get asked that same thing for 5 rounds. You just got to ask to do the one thing that was very hard that very few people would agree to do, and you just got asked to do it for 70% longer. That is a tremendous ask that Tom didn't blink on. And Tom's the favorite going into the fight. And that's only one side of it. So wait to hear what Sergei did. So now it's Sergei's time for an interview. And Sergei goes, and I feel like they should play that clip. Like, you know when somebody does something so then they break it off, or they'll even play it right before the fight. They'll use it in what's called the trailers and the promos, the commercials leading into a fight. I hope that they do that with Pavlovich. I hope they have guys like Tom Aspinall or me, Tom's voice piece. And then I hope they cut right to Pavlovich. And I hope they put a picture of Pavlovich up on the screen. And I hope it just plays to absolute dead air. To absolute, like, I want people at their device or I want them tapping. I want them turning the volume up, thinking they're missing. So I want them rewinding it, watching it over and over. Until they finally realize that a main event for a title in our most coveted division, the heavyweight class, with the two athletes representing not only the present but the most likely future, has been demoted to a co-main event because it lacks interest. And one of the principals who has a direct incentive to add interest when given his opportunity said, and for me, that's a highlight video I would cherish.